I have Helen with me, and we're going to be talking about the 10 ways that the NLNCN has helped her move forward in her LNC journey. So, welcome, Helen. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to have you here. Before we dive into what you've experienced inside the NLNCN, I'd love for you to share just a bit about your background. You bring over 30 years of nursing experience across multiple specialties,
Yeah.
including orthopedic, oncology, leadership roles. Can you walk us through your clinical background and what ultimately led you to exploring legal nurse consulting?
I started out as a medical assistant. While I was doing that, I wound up leaving the medical assisting and went into phlebotomy part-time and ophthalmic assistant. And then I worked for the last job I left before I went into nursing was ophthalmic assistant and retinal assistant. So I got to assist with injecting stuff into people's eyes for macular degeneration and diabetes and all that kind of stuff. Then I thought, it would be really cool to be able to go into the OR with the doctor. A friend of mine convinced me that I should be a nurse. I went to school for nursing at night, put myself through that at night while I worked at the ophthalmologist's office during the day and did phlebotomy on the weekend. So once I got my nursing, then I dropped all that and I started out in med surg, which was about a little over 5 years that I worked in that. And I loved it, but unfortunately, several months into my nursing career, my plan was to get my bachelor's and then become an RNFA, which is a RN first assist. So I would be in the OR, which is why I wanted to be a nurse. And then I was in a really bad car accident. I fractured my spine in multiple spots, cracked my sacrum three-quarters of the way through, had broken ribs, broken ankle, all kinds of stuff. So that kind of put that to the wayside. And basically, my spinal anesthesiologist who did all my injections and he was my pain management guy, he was like, you need to get out of med surg because lifting and bending over and all of that stuff was just, it was too much. I then went into orthopedic oncology, which was a whole different ball game. It was outpatient instead of inpatient. We were dealing with mostly sarcomas and all that kind of stuff. And then I basically started doing nurse navigating. So basically taking a person from pre-diagnosis to their biopsy and holding their hand through the results and what the next steps were, whether it was surgery right away, chemo, radiation, combination of both, that kind of stuff. Got them in with the right doctors, with the right tests, and just held their hand through survivorship. I basically, the more chaotic it was, the more I thrived. But it also took a toll on me because I would spend hours and hours in the office just making sure there was just so much to do and not enough people to do it. I wore the hat of seven different people. I was just like, there has to be something better than this. I didn't work all these years to just be miserable. I was just miserable. It was probably around 2023. I had seen some things on Instagram. It sounded like too good to be true. I thought working from home, I could be home for my mom if she needed me and all of that kind of stuff. So the seed was planted. I really thought about doing it. Then several months went by, and then my goal was to sign up for it while I was recovering from ankle surgery. That just really didn't happen. And then, unfortunately, a couple weeks into my recovery, my mom passed away. I was useless in all accounts of everything. So then last July, I finally said, I got to do this.
That's amazing. So you have had quite the journey. You've been through a lot. You can just see the tenacity in you and how much you have overcome. So that's inspiring. Let's start walking through the 10 ways that the NLNCN has helped you move forward. Number one, we had talked about was clarity on what LNC work actually looks like. So when you first started looking into legal nurse consulting, what did you think the role looked like? And then how did that compare to what you learned once you got inside the NLNCN?
I really wasn't too sure of all the details. I know that when it came to documentation, I always held the phrase, like I think we all do, CYA, cover your tushy, very closely, and I documented everything. I have some advanced practice providers who barely documented anything. And it was difficult to navigate what the actual plan for the patient was or when they needed to be seen next. So, by knowing the ins and outs of documentation, making sure that I documented everything in a timely manner, I know what needs to be there, what to look for, what to look for, what isn't there. I basically was an investigator every day.
How did the NLNCN help you?
I think getting further like into the classes and just
Yeah.
understanding that we know nursing, we don't know law. We know the standards of care, we know charting, we know how somebody should react to something. Lawyers don't know that. We know what standards of care are. Did somebody meet that? Did they fall short? So lawyers count on us. They don't have the time to learn all of that information. And on top of that, they may not know how to critically think when a patient is crashing or what to do in a situation. So we're trained and our gut instinct tells us what to do.
Number two is the NLNCN has helped you step into DMEs with confidence. You've done a couple now from the conversation that you had. So tell me a little bit about that.
I have a life coach and she had told me once about a DMA and I was like, that sounds really cool. I think I could totally do that. And honestly, I thought, hey, I worked in orthopedic oncology. I've been in a room with patients when the doctor was examining them, doing strength, range of motion tests, all kinds of stuff. And I figured if I could do that and document what the doctor did, I've observed it for 30 years. So I felt like it just was right. Now, I'm not quite finished with the DME made easy with Sylvia, but that just gives you more of a confidence as far as what you're allowed to do, how you're allowed to act, what the doctors are allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. So I'm quite sure that if I come across one of them in a DME, I'd be able to handle myself, just hopefully professional.
Yeah. I love to hear that. Let's move on to number three, understanding what attorneys actually expect. So, a major gap for most nurses is not really knowing exactly what they're looking for. So, what have you learned about attorney expectations that has shifted the way that you approach this work overall?
So that is a little tricky at the moment. I have not yet had to actually deal with attorneys personally. The I've only dealt with other LNCs and lawyers that they're dealing with. They seem pretty chill. The ones who are working with the LNCs that I'm working with are pretty chill. But for me, they're there to do a job for a client. And unless I deliver the goods that they need, that may or may not cause a good outcome. And quite frankly, as a nurse, if you're doing what you need to do to advocate for your patient, like you're on that same level. You're hired to do something or you're working at a job to do something to help these people and you want the best outcome possible. If you think of it like that, like they're just another person who's trying to make this person's life easier because somewhere along the line something happened that didn't.
If you're ready to turn your nursing experience into confident, attorney focused LNC work, join the NLNCN today for full access to trainings like this, weekly live education, networking opportunities, our full video vault, attorney facing strategies, and the support you need to grow as a legal nurse consultant.